Alright, so I haven't made a video in several days, and it's mostly because I've been a little disappointed with Vlad. I was testing against a friend, and he was playing aggro. And we were just running Vlad through a bunch of aggro lists, and we found that if you call the wrong stones on the first, couple turns, you basically lost the game. Um, and this was mostly for the draw. Usually whenever I test against aggro, you do it on or I do it on the draw, and I think that's how most people test when they're trying to test just to see whether something's viable against aggro. You gotta let aggro go first because they are going to go first half the time. Um, Basically, what happened is I found the deck was unable to compete because it was inconsistent on its stones. So I went down to like 2 to 3 colors. I think I went down to 3 color, and then I found that was too inconsistent as well. And I went down to 2 color, and after that, I just kind of determined that okay, Vlad isn't going to be able to hold against uh, a large number of aggro decks. Um, I think a person commented in one of my videos that he found the same thing. Um, that it's not going to be able to hold against aggro. So I don't think Vlad control is actually going to be viable this format. I know it seems a little random because I was going pretty strong on Vlad for a while, and then suddenly I don't make a video, and then 3 days later I'm like, okay, Vlad's not viable. I didn't record those testing sessions because I didn't know how good they would be, and I felt that if I did come to that conclusion that Vlad's not viable, that people may not want to watch those videos where I just get stomped by Vlad over and over, or stomped by aggro over and over, and then go back and try to change things up on the deck, cutting colors, going down to even 2 color, and then just saying, okay, well, it's not viable. Um, Vlad is actually really strong against mid-range decks, I'd say. Decks that aren't doing much, or putting on early pressure, like super fast. Um, I think Vlad is still fine against them because he's a clock, but against aggro decks, as long as aggro is prominent in this game, which it will be as long as Lancelot is a card, and of course they just released Prisha as well, then I think you're gonna have a hard time playing Vlad, unless your meta is just completely all mid range, and control-ish kind of decks. Because Vlad will win the control mirror, but not being able to be aggro is kind of like the litmus test for control, and I don't think Vlad can do that right now. Um, what else? Oh yeah, I also switched to. I also made a Liberator deck. I went back to the Liberator list I originally had because it was consistent on stones, and then I determined that you still can't beat aggro on the draw. Um, and we tested like 5 different games uh, on the draw against aggro, and even with some of the best hands I've had, I still wasn't able to stabilize. And so now I'm on Seer of the Blue Moon. It's kind of like an incarnation list. The main thing is the Executioner. If you mull really hard for Executioner, that is one of the best turn 1 plays in the game in Seer. It's not one of the. It's obviously only a turn 1 play that Seer of the Blue Moon can do, but it's probably like one of the strongest turn 1 plays because being able to flip it and kill a Lancelot or a Thug, um, get basically it says uh, destroy target resonator with CMC 3 or less on a 3/3 body, um, and so that effect is just insane against almost every deck. Except it's obviously like, not very good against another control deck, but you're probably not going to beat a control deck with Seer the Blue Moon. If you're playing against hard control like Vlad, they're just going to beat you because their win con is Vlad. Whereas you have a bunch of control cards. Like you can be more proactive about it, kind of like I am with this list. You can run like Nyarlathoteps and whatnot. But what happens is you're you're giving the removal cards basically just value. Um, and then once you do run out of resources, they can just start draining with Vlad, and you don't have that capability with Seer the Blue Moon. Okay, this guy's just clearly AFK, so I'm going to leave. Is there any other game? Yeah, I'm really sorry about this. I really thought that game was gonna take off. Instead, I got to talk for like 2 whole minutes, and then nothing happened. But I guess I did bring you up to speed on where I've been, what I've been doing with the deck. Save the Blue Moon it runs a sort of proactive a proactive incarnation type strategy, like Cthulhu incarnation strategy. Um, and I took this route because Executioner is great fodder for incarnation, whereas Rasputin is honestly not that great of a card. Rasputin is what historically was run. I only run 3 Rasputin. I don't want to run 4 in this list. I may even go down to 2, but I don't know if I can actually comfortably go down to 2. Um, Rasputin's not great. Like, the game wants to go long because I'm playing kind of like a grindy deck. And the issue with making the game go long is cards like Rasputin that don't actually do anything by themselves are not very good. Whereas being able to like even hardcast an Nyarlathotep or Hastur later on is still fine. That's why I run a singleton pitch Black Moon if I do see it and am able to resolve it. Then I can start pitching Rasputins and maybe even Rukh Eggs to get back Hasters and Nyarlathoteps, which these by themselves are better than the Rukh Egg and Rasputin. Although Rukh Egg is far better than Rasputin, simply because he searches. But Rasputin by himself is probably one of the few black 1-drops that we can run, which is honestly just like a game issue. When like black has no good 1-drop really, like no real like good 1-drop. Like white has Percival, um, what is it? Blue is Cheshire Cat, green is Familiar Holy Wind. What else? Red has is it Hunter? Red has a lot of good 1-drops. No, red is Rukh Egg. That's what it is. Um, okay, so EDC. Um, yeah, I just mull really hard for Executioner. But yeah, black doesn't actually have a 1-drop, and you can't really say Executioner because Executioner is only a 1-drop in Seer of the Blue Moon, also known as Kaguya 1.0. So yeah, black doesn't really have a 1-drop that's actually on par. Okay, so the thing about Executioner is it depends on what I have. If I have 2 in hand, I'll probably pop this on their 1-drop. But if I don't have 2 in hand, I don't like popping it on their 1-drop because unless it's like an Elvish Priest. Oh yeah, that's another card. That's another 1-drop that green has, Elvish Priest. Black doesn't really have that many good 1-drops, but unless it's like Elvish Priest, I'm probably not gonna pop Executioner on it. Um, it just doesn't seem like it's necessary. But it also kind of depends on what I have in hand too. Being able to turn 2 Nyarlathotep him is really strong. So um, I may end up just doing that because it's better to Nyarlathotep on turn 2 than not have a Nyarlathotep. Um, but I could also just pass and hold up Stoning. Yeah, just literally just pass if he doesn't play anything, and then Executioner or whatever he plays. I do want to get that off the field. Um, I don't want that there. Okay, so here we drew into an awesome card. We're attacking for 3. And unfortunately, we can't play the Rukh Egg. So I made this mana base not lose a split heaven and earth. One of the tests I ran, or when I was testing against aggro, I did test against a split deck, and it was pretty awful for me. So I have a second Executioner here. I think we'll go ahead and set the sign as well, because if we're not going to have Stoning mana up, we might as well set both of our chance standbys here. I'm basically hoping I can hit a black redstone. Yeah. We'll go ahead and swing with both of these for 6. Then we'll play a Rukh Egg and incarnate these two. We'll go ahead and grab. We're at the point where we can actually hardcast the Hastur, so we'll go ahead and put that. Grab one of those. Out of these, I think Keeper's the one we want to hit. I guess he DC'd again. Maybe he's just quitting. I don't know. But yeah, we were gonna pass with Stone Your Death mana up and then hardcast the Hastur on turn 4 if necessary. Although we probably wouldn't need to hardcast the Hastur. Actually, we wouldn't even use this. Well, yeah, we'd have to use Stoning just for tempo because if we tap out for Hastur and then don't use the Stoning, then we're less mana efficient. I think depends on what we would have drawn. Yeah, okay. I guess it didn't matter either way. We were gonna have two more kill spells in our hand. I'm just gonna leave that game. Wow, he doesn't want to play against me, I guess. See, that's the thing with people on Untap that I kind of don't understand. I mean, I guess it's the internet. You can just be a douchebag on the internet and it's not gonna matter. But I think it does get to you. I think you should try to be a nice person if you can. Granted, I'm pretty strict on the rules, so when someone like does something wrong, like actually wrong, I'll usually tell them about it. But like this sort of like just leaves the game and starts a new game. It's just kind of a dick move. Go ahead and create another game for you guys. So this isn't like a 15-minute video, although you guys probably wouldn't mind that. It is like 2 a.m., so if I don't find a match, if my game time's out, then I'll probably just cut the video short and that'll be it. But I'm feeling pretty good about Seer the Blue Moon. It's got a lot of interaction. It's a proactive kind of mid-range kind of control deck, and I feel like that's how you have to do it if you're gonna play. Like this is the reason why I switched to this again is because I wanted to be able to beat aggro, and the only way I could really beat aggro on the draw as a control-y type deck was to either open a bunch of bows, which is inconsistent, or just mull really hard for Executioner, which is a lot easier to do. And Executioner's not even bad against non-aggro decks. And so that was the other issue. Like if you test against mid-range and you mold really hard for bows, like the bows aren't terrible against mid-range, but you're also just like playing a bunch of bows and they're probably not going to attack you until they've established their board or something. And also a lot of mid-range decks play like Hera and Barrier Shadows, whereas aggro decks only play like Barrier. But either way, like if they drop a barrier on you and they're playing aggro, then all your bows that you mold for aren't very good. Whereas Executioner is like always good. So yeah, that's why I switched to Seer. And then the issue with Seer is if you don't take a proactive route, then what happens is you lose to stuff like Vlad. Like you basically say I have a bunch of reactive cards in hand, and then you pass the turn, like you draw, and it's like okay, well they didn't play anything last turn, or they don't have anything on the field, and so you pass the turn back. Because you're not like Vlad, you don't have like a built-in win con that you can just sink your mana into. You're just kind of time walking. It's like okay, well you didn't do anything, so I'm not gonna do anything, and you just pass. And then, in theory, that's like fine if you're a control player, if you're running like win cons like Mephistopheles. But if they didn't do anything, oh well, also if they're playing Reflect, that's just not very good. Because then your kill spells are like off half the time. So I feel like you have to be proactive, and not only proactive, but as I mentioned in my last video, where I was moving more to like Resonator heavy type control, you have to be proactive and proactive with Resonators. So that's just kind of like a general force of will thing. As long as it reflects in the format, I think non-Resonator based removal spells are only good like in the early game. And if you're a deck that's trying to grind out the game, kind of like a control deck, you need to increase the number of Resonator-based effects that you have. Now there's a few exceptions. Obviously, Seal, when in light, you can awaken it. So it can't be countered. And Flame Outerworld is always going to be a good card as long as it can't be chased too. So, well, I mean, it's always going to be that way. Flame Outerworld is always going to be a good card. I should probably show you the deck while looking Okay, so for Executioner, obviously, Lucifer, again, for the same reason as my first video, if you're playing against aggro, what happens is they whittle you down to about like 20 and then finish you off with burn spells or like some sort of reach. Lucifer has two things that combat that. One is it has flying, so when they go for their Pumpkin Witch combo, they're playing like uh, the Reflect Italian like aggro deck. Lucifer has flying, so it can actually block and not lose to like a flying item Brawly. Um, and the other thing is he has life gain. Now you can only activate it. There's only like two stones in this deck that are going to be able to turn on the life gain because they can produce moon. That's the Black Moon Samoria and that's the Moonshade. But once you stabilize, you have a Lucifer and then you swing with Lucifer and you gain 9 life, or at least you attempt to activate and gain 9 life. And that's relevant because once you start gaining life as control, it puts the game out of reach for aggro, and I think that's really important. So Lucifer signs are obviously in here. You can only trigger them. You can't actually hard cast them unless you have a Moonshade in play. Like you can't just cast as a spell chant instant. Okay, there's someone in the game, but being able to set it for 1, I mean that's what you're gonna be doing most of the time anyway. Okay, so usually what happens is when I see a hand like this, I want to keep the Executioner. I'll probably keep the Rasputin just because it's fodder. I'm gonna bottom the rest because I want to hit one of my Incarnation Resonators. So I hit like a really godly hand depending on what he's playing. If he's playing like some sort of Kaguya control, then obviously it's not gonna be that great. But this hand is nuts. If you ever open like triple Executioner into like Nyarlathotep, like he's just gonna be feeling the pain. Executioner's just gonna be blowing up his dudes. You're gonna Thoughtseize his hand. It's just gonna be awful for him. Usually for the sake of time, what I do online is I play the bow, do the rest of my stuff for the turn, and then pass, and then put the 2 counters on because it takes some time. Okay, it looks like we might be playing against fairies, like Kaguya fairies. So he actually misplayed a little bit because if he's trying Rulers and Warriors, he definitely needed to set that Artemis bow before playing or before calling a stone. But I guess it didn't punish him here. I can't attack here as long as he has that bow. So he might have Seal of Wind and Light in hand. That's a possibility. But I think I have to go for it anyway. Because if he does counter this, I can just set the Executioner anyway. See, all these people today, like, it's always been like, oh, you're gonna Thoughtseize me? Well, screw this. Like, I'm out of here. Okay, so I don't want to make this miserable. I don't think there's that many people online. Oh, I guess there are a few people. 31 minutes ago? Well, this is 4 hours ago. 32 minutes ago. Ruby Vixen might still be online. We'll see if we can get someone else. But yeah, so far we haven't even had games. It's just been Thoughtseize. Okay, I can see. So yeah, clearly people don't like getting Thoughtseized. To me, that strikes me as I'm doing something right. Um, oh, okay, this is why. You also play Alice Block. Uh, I see. See, my game name was a little misleading because it's TMS. I should say TMS. I should say New Frontiers, not TMS. I was saying TMS because before the set had come out, I was testing a little bit on here, um, just TMS. But yeah, that game name literally means like the Moonlit Savior. Actually, no, it doesn't imply only Block Alice. it implies the Moonlit Savior, like only the Moonlit Savior, which is also not true. So I should probably see about changing my game name. Let's go back into the deck. So I covered Lucifer. Signs, obviously, you're going to set them most of the time and then just trigger them. What's cool is that you can trigger them on the chase. So if you have like Executioner and like a Rasputin in play, and then you incarnate like the Nyarlathotep, and you have a sign feature that's set, and it wasn't set that turn, because you can't trigger chance standbys the same turn they're set, what you can do is, since Nyarlathotep's still in the chase, Rasputin and Executioner hit the grave, or maybe the Rasputin goes to your hand, whatever. While Nyarlathotep's still in the chase, you actually control 0 resonators, and so you can just trigger sign, and then like get rid of 2 of the dudes, and then thought seize them. So that's a really strong play this deck can do. Stone Death, I run 3. I don't run the full 4. I feel like Stone Death falls off. You have a lot of just creature removal anyway. You have Hastur, you have Executioner, you have Lucifer. You have ways to keep the resonator count very low, and because of that, Stony is a little inferior compared to like these resonator based removal cards. Because like I said earlier, if you draw Stony later game gets reflect, it's probably not gonna resolve. Whereas Hastur is always gonna resolve, unless they like counter it, unless they actually spend a card to counter, I should say. In most cases, Stone Death they can just like remove 2 counters on reflect and counter it. So Stone Death I ran at 3 because I still feel like it's necessary. Sometimes you do have awkward hands with this. The awkward thing about Incarnation has always been, what if you see a bunch of fodder like Rukh Eggs and Rasputins, but you don't see your Incarnation dudes? So you still have to run stuff like Sign, like Stoning, and like Flame. You still have to run like actual hard removal. Of course, Flame's always good. And the Rukh Egg, Guinevere almost always is just used for dig. It's also good against another control deck because then they're spending cards and you're able to basically replace those cards with Guinevere. Guinevere is just really good against a number of things. And then you have your Rasputin and Rukh Egg or your fodder. Rukh Egg almost always grabs another Rukh Egg or Hastur, just so you can thin your deck and start chaining. Rukh Egg usually grabs another Rukh Egg early on, and then once you can start hard casting Hasturs, well, it depends on what's in your hand. Obviously, if you have a Hastur in hand and you have a Rasputin in hand as well, then you probably want to grab another Rukh Egg, since you can incarnate for cheaper. Like, you can incarnate and cast Stone Death in the same turn. But if it's like later game and you can just hard cast a Hastur, the Rukh Eggs almost always grab the Hastur just because the value of the Hastur is much better than the Rukh Egg itself. And then Pitch Black Moon. There's only 1 in here. The game's gonna drag out long, and your goal is to be able to recycle stuff like Lucifer, which is like your win con, Hastur, and Nyarlathotep. Being able to get back what you need is really important in this deck. And then the Rasputin count, I still feel pretty comfortable at 3. Like I said, we used to run 4 in like Blazer Cthulhu, but Rasputin's honestly just awful, like not a good card. People will tell you otherwise, and until you play with the Executioner, your standard of what a good black card is not like there if you think Rasputin's like a really good black 1-drop. Executioner is a good black 1-drop, at least in Seer. So yeah, that's the main board. This Barrier Shadows, sometimes I feel like I want to go up to 3 Barrier Shadows, and so I'm not sure what I'd cut. I obviously don't cut the Pitch Black Moon. I don't think I can go down number of flames because you still want to be able to beat J Ruler strategies, and oftentimes the way to beat that is you swing your dude into it and then you like flames it, or sometimes your flames just accumulate in hand. Like if you're playing against Bahamut, obviously you want to save like your flames, flame outer worlds in hand. But also if you're playing against Bahamut, you probably want to have more barrier shadows. So I don't know, we'll see. Like it might just be like a thing where I need to cut down on the number of stoning deaths, go down to 2 stoning, go to 3 barrier. But I'm not really sure because I think stoning's value is always higher than barrier, so I might have to cut like a Guinevere instead. I'm not entirely sure. But I do feel like this deck wants 3 barrier, and I'm not gonna play 41 cards because I want again, like the inconsistency of Incarnation is usually when you have fodder and no dudes, and so I don't think I can like trash the consistency of this deck just a little bit by adding a 41st card. So as far as the stone base goes, I wanted this to be not susceptible to split. So I originally had 5 darkness stones and only 1 moonshade, and then I realized testing against aggro, okay, so what you actually have to do is you need to be able to trigger Lucifer. Once you play the Lucifer, and you're probably going to see it because you run 4, you need to start gaining life. And if you only have 1 stone that can do that, what if you just don't hit that stone? Like you're always in this oh shit mode. Like if you don't hit that stone. So I decided, okay, so the chance of them having or not flat, split heaven and earth, and splitting you for game. Uh, I feel like having one more stone that can turn on Lucifer is more important than um, just having a stone that actually doesn't do anything, except not or make you less susceptible to split. You already have 40% of the stones that aren't susceptible to split, and I think that's enough. Because what's more important, if you think about it, like, is it better to not die to a split or to have another way, like a 10% more chance, or greater chance to start gaining life with Lucifer? And I'd argue you need a greater chance to gain life with Lucifer, because if what if they just split you anyway? What if it's not game, they just split you and bring you down to like three? Well, then you're in like thunder range. And what if they just don't have the split, right? Like, you want to be more proactive in what you're doing with the deck. It's kind of like that thing where in most cases in this game, it's better to draw a card than make your opponent discard a card. Um, because oftentimes your opponent, well, even if you pick what they discard, obviously Nyarlathotep is a lot better because you pick what they discard. But if you play like Spiral, Spiral's I think in most cases fine because they discard too. But if there was a card that was like make your opponent discard a random card, or not random card, make your opponent discard a card, I don't think that card would be very good because it'd be better if it said draw a card. It's much better to be proactive in what you're doing, than just be reactive. Another thing is like, what if you're not playing against aggro and you have a Lucifer and you're like, well, I've taken a bunch of damage this game just from like mid range, you kind of getting grinded out. I need to gain life. Well, if you only have one stone to do that because you were like, oh, I need to play around split and I need to run half my stones to not be susceptible to split, then you're in like an awkward situation, right? So it's much better to be proactive about it. Because what if you're playing against a greedy mid-range deck that just doesn't have split or can't run split because they're super greedy on their stones? Well, in that case, you were better off running like a Black Mage Moria or another way to trigger Lucifer, the life gain, than to just be like, I'm gonna play super hard or I'm gonna play 50% against split. So that's just my logic there. Sorry if I kind of ranted for too long. That's where the deck is right now. I don't think there's any other no other like forcible game. Really. How long has this video been? Okay, it's been 30 minutes already. I'm just gonna cut it off here. We'll pick up tomorrow, or possibly the next day with some more games. Sorry, I have not made a video on sort of like made it like a control video in like 3 days. Like I said, I have been testing during that time, and the results have not been very good, and so I didn't want to just like produce a video and not have anything. Just be like, okay, yeah, here's a video where we found out this deck doesn't work. Well, what are you taking away from that video? You're not really taking anything from that video other than Vlad's not very good, and I can demonstrate that just by telling you this, uh, or letting you just kind of go and like test for yourself. Because I think the logic checks out. Like, you call the wrong stones, you lose. But I want you to take away something from this video, and that is this is what my list looks like right now. Um, I'm feeling pretty good about it. You will still lose to aggro some games if they just have like the nut draw and you just have like a god awful hand or something. But yeah, this deck holds up against aggro a lot better, and it's actually a lot of fun to play too. So yeah, give it a spin, if you want online. Don't do what I think one person did. I lost a subscriber, and I think what happened is he commented saying like the deck, like my Vlad list in the previous video, um, had mana inconsistencies. And I think what happened, I have this feeling based on what he said. I'm not gonna share the comment here because I don't want to point him out in the names, but I have this feeling that he took my latest list from the Vlad video, went to locals, and just got trashed. And I would caution I would advise you not to do that with these videos or with the lists I'm producing from these videos until I write like an article about it. It's only when I write like an article, kind of like my Sylvia article, that I'm pretty confident in that list, and it's something that you can take to locals, maybe with a couple changes for your local meta, and do really well with. If you're taking these like raw like testing lists and taking them to your locals, you're probably gonna get smashed, simply because this is just a thing where I'm testing out different lists. and until I run it through the gauntlet, until I run through, ooh, here's a game. Until I run through the gauntlet of different types of decks, I'm usually just trying out different ideas, getting a feel for the format and for what cards work from the new set, and then trying to test them against random people to get that feel. And then once I feel like I have somewhat of a cohesive deck, then I run it through the gauntlet, which I did with the Vlad list. And if I realize, okay, wait, well, this deck can't be aggro, then I need to go back to the drawing board and figure out what other like unique or cool strategy would do really well, and then just go from there. So that's kind of what I'm doing. Okay, so I guess this video isn't going to be 30 minutes because if I can get a match in, I would very much like to have an actual match as opposed to like 2-game-1s where the opponent just kind of left. So here's a pretty decent hand. It's not as good as having like a Nyarlathotep, but we're gonna open turn 1 Executioner into probably turn 2 Hastur. Since we're on the draw, our Executioner, he's gonna be able to play a 1-drop. Ooh, the tree. Well, I'm glad we have stuff like Sowing to Death in this deck, and Lucifer is also really good. So if we can keep his Resonator count very low, then Lucifer should come in handy here. At least once he triggers the tree. So Guinevere is a card I'm probably going to hit with the Executioner. Once he plays something, I'm probably just going to flip the Executioner and kill Guinevere. Because Guinevere is, since we're playing a control-ish kind of deck, Guinevere is one of those cards that basically says, like, if you spend a card to kill something, I'm going to get that card back, or I'm going to cause it to replace itself. So we actually want to get Guinevere off the field if we can. Alright, well, we don't have an out to Realm. So if he does resolve a Realm against us, we may just end up losing. Does he have another Guinevere in hand? That'd be pretty good. Yeah. Alright, so here's basically what I'm gonna do. We're gonna swing. Yeah, we're gonna swing for 3. I can either get the Guinevere off the field. I don't. Okay, so the Yamada's not in play, or not in the grave. So it's probably better to get the Guinevere off the field this turn. Yeah, I'm gonna play Hastur. Grab me another Rukh Egg. This way I have Incarnation fodder for Nyarlathotep. And then go ahead and play the Rukh Egg here, I think. I'll pass. Since I have the Guinevere off the field, I think I got rid of his discard outlet. And that's really important because if you can't get Yamada in the grave, then there's no way for him to reincarnate if he was to play like a Book of Iban this turn, which I think is what he would have done. And the issue without seizing him with Nyarlathotep is if he has like 2 Book of Iban and I'll leave the Guinevere in play, then it wasn't going to go well for me. Yeah. He has a 40 Thieves. So here he's going to discard the Yamada most likely. Or I guess he's sizing up for Genesis Creation. Book of Iban, yeah, he's sizing up for Genesis Creation. And so I'm going to Thought Seize him and hope I don't see 2 of them. If I see 2 of them, we'll have to leave up Stony Death mana. That's basically what we're going to have to do. So there's no image for the 40 Thieves here. And my image is not loading. I have like serious lag. No, my lag is, I have good. Okay. Okay, so he didn't actually equip the card I thought he was going to. Maybe I'm just having lag. That could be it. Well, we're gonna swing. Yeah. And we're swing because I want to keep his Resonator count low. Because we're playing Lucifer. We can play Lucifer next turn. Is Yamada in the grave? So he's another 40 Thieves. Yep. We don't need this Rasputin back. Do we? Yeah, we do. We're gonna want that Rasputin back. I think. We don't want this. We want to get a Hastur most likely, because we can just hardcast Hastur if necessary and get that Rasputin back. Okay, so he's got like triple Genesis Creation. Yeah, so we're gonna do that. And that's kind of unfortunate. We're just gonna have to leave up mana for stoning. So he's gonna get back the book, and the book's probably gonna get back like Guinevere or something. Yeah. So this is a 40 Thieves, 2 Gen Creations, and just gonna play another 40 Thieves. Basically, he's trying to stack up his grave. Because I think Book of Iban getting back a Guinevere Rukh Egg is not very impressive. So he's gonna try to get back both of them, is what it looks like. So we're gonna want to save. Okay. So he's gonna try to get back multiple Yamadas. So we need 2 kill spells. Well, that's a little awkward. Leave up for stoning. Leave up one of these for stoning, and then yeah. So we'd stoning the one he puts. So what does he have? 4 times 8 is 32. Actually, I can't attack here. Here. So, yeah, one of the stonings. He's gonna split the Yamada, or split the necromancies across different Yamadas. So we hit the one with more necromancies on it. Yeah, that's basically what you have to do. We hit the one with more necromancies on it. and then leave the rest of these to block. Yeah. So this is a good game because it's going to tell me what I need in the sideboard. I might need a fetal movement. That'd be pretty good here. Obviously, I'm not going to mainboard fetal movement, but given how many resonators this deck actually runs, running like a 1-0 fetal movement may not be bad. I just don't have the room for it. So I can probably side into fetals. Fetal is better than stoning in this situation, but not... Stoning is better than Hastur in this situation. So... Oh, I know what happened. Okay, so he can't even cast Genesis Creation. I know what happened. Sure. Let's see. I think I just take all these hits. Yeah, I think that's what I have to just do. I wish I was on the play here. If I had 6 mana, I could actually activate Lucifer's life gain and not die to resolve Yamada. So what happens is he hit the wrong stones here. I still have to leave up a stoning. That's what's awkward. I still have to leave up stoning and these to block, I think. No, I can hit 2 of them. That seems awful. Definitely set this. Yeah, so I have to leave up a stoning. I could kill one of these, so I have a blocker, I have a stoning. What if he hits the right mana this time? He had a really strong start. Okay, so I don't attack him here. The Pumpkin Witch is pretty good. Do I just hope he hits the wrong stone? That could be it. Play one of these. Attacking him for 1. At this point, if I'm just not gonna have one of these to block, then it's better for me to get rid of one of them anyway. So I'm gonna hit this one, I think. Let's see. Yeah, that turns a little awkward. I could clear most of his board. How good is that? If I kill this, if I wipe his whole board. No, I need to be able to trigger Executioner, so I need something left on the board. If he brings back 2 Yamadas. think this is best, because then I can block one, block the other. This is probably going to block one of these. Trigger the Executioner, kill the other one. And hope he doesn't hit the right stone. So he did. So he's going to bring back the book. I don't have addition removal here, so he's going to bring back 2 Yamadas. Yeah. So I would chomp. What is it? 5 times 4 is 20. I'm barely alive. If I was to just chomp all those. So that's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 8 times. No, I'm not alive at all. 8 times 4 is 32. If you're trying an incarnation strategy, or not incarnation, reanimation strategy, then I need to have... This is good testing, because it means I need to have these in the board. Probably not 4. What did I cut here? Barriers obviously not very good. Cut 2 barriers. I actually think I do need 4. Barriers and signs. Probably not very good. Yeah, my game 1 against reanimation strategy is probably not going to be very good. If I was on the play, this would have been a lot better. Since I would have 6 mana. And I'd be able to play Lucifer and still have the mana to activate its life gain. Which would have been relevant, because if he hits me once for 4, I block, gain 9. And that cancels out that hit and 2 other hits. Actually, no, it wouldn't have mattered, because I had to have Stoning Death. So, could it? Would it have mattered? Would I have been able to just kill the Yamada with blocks? So I would Stoning one of the Yamadas. I would have the Lucifer, because that'd be exactly 6 mana. 4 and 6. 4 and 2. 6. Block one of the attacks. Block another attack. That's 9 plus 8, 17. Block a 3rd attack. And that would actually kill the Yamada. Am I even dead here? I am, right? 15, 18. Yeah, because I only have 18 to block. By the way, if you're worried about this deck, Reanimator has always been around ever since like Blazer, back when it was a deck that didn't die to Split Heaven and Earth. Oh, I could side in splits against this if I really wanted to. I think I could. But yeah, Blazer Reanimator was a deck back when yeah, because you could run Guinevere, you could run 40 Thieves, and not have to run Redstones. And back then, the ways to beat Reanimator were you could sign to Horn, but Horn wasn't particularly like great. But you can run Fetal Movement, and Fetal Movement screwed with them pretty hard. And the reason why is you don't have to even wait until they cast like a Genesis creation. If you slide into 4 Fetal Movements, you're probably gonna see at least 2 of them. And so if you see like, oh, their grave has 2 Yamatas, well, there's 2 of their win cons in their grave. You can just like randomly Fetal Movement them and get their win cons out of the grave, like while they're tapped out or something. This way they have to go through the work of getting those dudes back in the grave or getting more Yamatas in the grave, and then playing their reanimation spell. Especially if they're down on cards like this. If this is what their hand is, if you were to if I was to Fetal Movement this, he would have to do so much work to get Yamatas in his grave again because they would just be removed from the game. Like 2 of them would be removed from the game. He'd have to find another discard outlet like 40 Thieves or Guinevere uh, before he could cast a Genesis creation. And by that time, he might just be dead. So it's actually not a bad matchup as long as you side into it. You're probably just going to lose game 1, and that's just kind of how it is. I think the Bahamut matchup is the same for a lot of decks, even like the top tier competitive decks. They're just willing to lose game 1 against Bahamut, but they absolutely demolish Bahamut in games 2 and 3. And those games aren't going to be long either, so it's not like they're going to go to time. Game 1's usually going to be short. It's just probably going to be a creaming, and then they slide into like death sites, and then probably some number of barriers, and then they just smash Bahamut. They drag out the game long enough. They could even sign to Susanoo, and they can just crush Bahamut. It's kind of the same way. I don't think Reanimator is going to be as popular of a strategy, but I'm also not worried about it because I played against it back in the SKL format. Like it was a thing back then, and um, this is a good game. It was good to know like where to start on my sideboard. I still think I'm a little iffy on the main board. Maybe I want like a robe fire rat main, maybe some number of robes. Uh, Although the red matchup didn't feel so bad that I actually need to have robes. Um, Here, let me look at the deck and I'll show you. So things I was thinking of, I feel like I want 3 barriers, but I'm not sure what to cut. And I feel like I may want 2 robes, but getting 2 robes in there is a lot harder than getting the 3rd barrier. And the funny thing about robe, well, robe is also dead in a lot of matchups, so I'm really hesitant to have a robe in there. Robe would have been good here against Yamada, obviously, but again, against a Reanimator deck, whether it's Yamada or something else, this card is a beating. This card like is the reason why Reanimator was never a huge thing in SKL format, because you couldn't win games 2 and 3 in most cases. But the funny thing about Robe, so if you Judgment Seer, like this deck can't Judgment Seer because we don't play any treasury items, or we don't play any treasury items. But if you were to play one in Judgment Seer, you can change the text of a treasury item by replacing the instance of one attribute with another. So you can make Robe of Fire Rat not only affect red, or not be for red. You can change the text of Robe of Fire Rat to say, yeah, you can change the text of Robo Fire Rat to say a different color, so like black or green resonator or white resonator. So that's kind of funny, but that might just be too cute and not worth doing at all. I may want some robes in the side, which I think that's a good place to put robes. I'm gonna put some number of Robo Fire Rat in the side for now. Probably not 4. I think at most I would put like 2 right now. Robe is great with Sign Future, by the way. But I don't know if I can fit it into the main board. Robe is dead against a lot of matchups, like I said. You also want to be a little bit more proactive than reactive. So that's just how I'll leave it. Yeah, this will be where the deck is by the end of this video. I think I need the fetal movements in there. So yeah. If you're interested, I feel pretty confident about this list, more so than any of my other like control lists in this series, whether it's the Liberator control list or the Vlad control list. So if you actually want to take this list, give it a spin online, then go ahead. Until I actually figure out some of the numbers on this, I wouldn't take this to your locals or anything like that. So thank you for watching this video, and I'll catch you next.